Hi, everybody. Welcome to Grimwit with Dimwits. I'm T, just T, sad and lonely, only T.
And I'm Blondie, and we all know what I am.
Oh, no, they don't know exactly. Oh, that's not what you're talking about.
That's not a bad thing.
So tell them, go ahead and do your big ta-da.
Ta-da, with my hands and everything.
Your little jazz hands. Why that's required, I still don't know.
Because it just makes it flashy. I think it makes my voice extend.
You're fancy.
Right? The dimwit extraordinaire.
I think you even get a little accent when you say it.
I do.
Extraordinaire.
A little bougie.
Whatevers.
So, this episode, we will be talking about voodoo.
Voodoo. That already sounds so creepy right off the bat.
Well, one would think.
Right.
But after doing some research, I think my mind has changed a little bit.
I know very little about voodoo, and I know it sounds creepy, but there's a lot going on there.
There is. And the background to it is very extensive.
Well, I've always kind of wondered what it was really about, so here you go.
Here I go.
The ball's in your court.
Okay. Voodoo has been widely misunderstood over the years and even in today's society. The meaning of the word voodoo is spirit, God, image, or sacred energy. There are so many myths and misconceptions surrounding voodoo, in part due to Hollywood sensationalizing its practices through movies and the wild imaginations of the writers. The image of voodoo is evil devil worship, of human sacrifice, zombies, and hypersexualized behavior. If you ask the average person, they think voodoo is a form of Satanism. Contrary to popular opinion in Hollywood, voodoo is not a type of demonic worship or witchcraft at all.
You're right about that. It does come across as, somewhat evil and as if they are moving dark forces. But that, like you said, is how Hollywood wants it to be.
From what I've actually researched and Hollywood's version of it, two different things.
Exactly.
Voodoo is a religion originating in Haiti that began when Africans were captured and forced into slavery. It is primarily derived from a region of West Africa known today as Benin, from the Yoruba, Fon, and Wi peoples along with the Congo people of Central Africa. Voodoo is universal and grounded in the four elements of nature, air, fire, and water. There is an old Haitian saying that says, quote, "Everything is poison, nothing is poison. You use something in a positive way and it's good for you. You use something in a negative way and it will kill you." End quote. There are several facets to voodoo religion, which include music, possession, belief in healing powers, gods, rituals, ceremonies, and like any other religion, it is a way of life for voodooists or practitioners. It is a religion connected to nature, spirits, and ancestors, and it is without scripture. Its traditions are preserved in rituals of song, music, and dance.
I kind of like that. I'm respecting how they're holding on to it.
And they actually even said that a lot of the different areas and regions that practice voodoo don't practice it the same way. Right. They have the same basic concepts, but they have their own traditions that they do.
I kind of love that.
At the beginning of the 16th century, millions of slaves were taken to the New World and forced to work. During the voyage across the ocean, the conditions were terrible, and a quarter of them would die. In an attempt to weaken the slaves and their bonds to their home before they left, they were told by the traders to perform a voodoo ritual that required them to walk around a tree, which was named the Tree of Forgetfulness. The slaves were convinced this would steal their memories of home.
Wow, isn't it amazing what mind games people can play and get people to believe in that? Just walking around a tree.
And they're so into rituals and ceremony that they believe that that's what would happen.
Wow.
Despite the efforts of the traders, the slaves were not deprived of their memories, identities, or their beloved sacred forest. Their ancestral beliefs endured. They didn't have any religious texts or revered artifacts to hold on to. They preserved their memories of their religion in their minds and in their hearts.
Well, that's good. That just proved me wrong. I thought they were actually forgetting stuff.
No. A quote from Donald Consentio, a professor of folklore and mythology at UCLA, stated, quote, "The physical hardships and emotional hardships of slavery were absolutely extraordinary, not only in terms of just the numbers of people who died in the course of the ships coming to America, but also in the enormous difficulties that they faced here, and Voodoo provided a sense of strength even in those extraordinary difficult contexts." End quote. Upon arriving to the New World, the slaves were forced to adapt to Catholicism. This ultimately appealed to them. They used the fundamentals of Catholic rituals and the saints to represent their own African gods. Donald Consentio said, quote, "They knew a gorgeous thing when they saw it, and much of the splendor of Voodoo art is because of the appreciation of the splendor that was inherent through the Catholic Church and through images that were appropriated for." End quote. The slaves were dispersed all over the Caribbean and the Americas. They had to worship in secret, and with the sacred forest only a memory in their minds, they created a symbolic tree trunk called a putumitin. It is a center pole where they could perform their voodoo rituals and a powerful focal point for the gathering of the deities or gods. Constantly going around the putumitin tree brought the goodness of God Almighty, God down to earth. Voodoo has done more than profoundly influence individual human lives through its mystical rituals. Near Ouida, Benin, is the sacred forest, and to the ancient Fawn people, this was a place of wonder, peril, and mystery. The faithful believed that the life force resides in all-knowing God, too powerful and remote to speak to humanity. There are a multitude of voodoo deities who actively shape the lives and fortunes of human beings. Among these deities were Ogun, the god of iron and war, Gede, the god of sexuality, and Aiwido, the great mother goddess. The question of how many voodoo gods exist is a mystery. If asked, answers range from 201, 2001, 400, 1600, or too many to count. The one at the end of some of the numbers equates to being even more than you can imagine. So whatever the number is, add 1 to it.
I've never heard that put that way before.
It makes sense.
It's like infinity. Whatever the number, just add 1 to it. It'll never stop.
Right.
That's interesting.
An interesting story about the sacred forest that practitioners believe was due more to powerful forces than superstitions. In the 20th century, a French diplomat defied the warnings of the voodoo initiates and decided to build a house in the center of the sacred forest. Right after he moved in, it is reported that he witnessed terrifying apparitions and heard strange sounds coming from the forest. In a matter of weeks, he was forced to leave the estate forever, happy that he escaped with his life. Many West Africans believe it was the revenge of the gods, but was this merely proof that the Frenchman was the victim of his own hyperactive imagination? I don't know how bougie you would have to be to defy warnings that you can't basically build in the sacred forest.
Right.
But he's, a French diplomat, maybe.
Well, if it's not part of, the way you grew up, you don't respect it. And he sounds like he's learning the hard way. You better respect it.
Well, they're telling him the gods live there. You can't.
Right.
You can't park.
Yeah. No parking on the dance floor, buddy.
Right.
Get off. And you know what? I'm sorry. Those people who don't listen to and respect other people's faiths, you get what you get because, you disrespected them.
Exactly.
I have no sympathy for those folks. I'd never do it, just out of respect, whether it was true or not. I wouldn't do it.
When you have an entire village telling you not to do something.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah. They're like, why do you think we don't live on that prime piece of real estate? because we respect our beliefs and traditions.
It had been 300 years since Columbus had brought chained slaves to the Caribbean. The slave owners had viewed their African-based religion as a threat. They feared the slaves would retaliate by using their voodoo magic to get revenge for the horrific barbarities that had been committed against them. Wade Davis, author, reflects, quote, "On the plantations, one of the few ways the slaves were able to demonstrate their ancient practice and traditions was through spirituality, and in the sense, voodoo was always seen as something that could threaten. Because why? Because it was demonstrating the possibility of freedom, spiritual freedom, and indeed political freedom." End quote.
Exactly. People are always afraid of what they don't understand.
The unknown.
Mm-hmm.
George Ware, director of publicity at La Peristyle Haitian Sanctuary, said, quote, "There were many places where people struggled to overcome that and to revolt against slavery. There's only one place where that was successful, and that place was Haiti. And in Haiti, voodoo was the primary tool that people used to successfully free them from slavery." End quote.
That's interesting.
In 1758, a prophet of freedom and former slave from Haiti named Makandal from West Africa was arrested for the possession of forbidden poisons. His sentence was to be burned at the stake. The day of his execution, it was said that Makandal leapt free of the flames and escaped. Many believe it was by use of his voodoo powers. Later, he was caught and put to death, but his legend inspired slaves to continue to seek freedom. If he could leap from the flames, I would definitely say there was something powerful going on. That wasn't a David Copperfield act. Quote, "What grew up in Haiti was not just the voodoo religion. It was a voodoo civilization, and in the same sense that we speak of Christian Judeo-civilization or Buddhist civilization, you can speak of a voodoo civilization." End quote, explained Wade Davis. Strangely, it was the French Revolution that would spur the Haitian slaves to rebel against their French slave owners. By 1791, during the Haitian revolutions, thousands of former slaves had fled and built their own way of life, which included practicing voodoo and serving the spirits. A sense of solidarity and anger arose. A former slave and voodoo priest, Boukman, gave a historic signal to launch revolt with the beat of the voodoo drums that signaled the death knell of slavery. Donald Consentio stated, quote, "What gave them the power, what gave them their inspiration? The gods of Africa. The gods of Africa who were reclaiming their own, who were reconstituting their families, refusing to serve any more under slavery. It must be remembered that the initial act of rebellion was in fact a voodoo ceremony." End quote.
Sounds like they garnered a lot of strength from voodoo. And just from what you've been saying, I'm going to guess maybe because it was like all their own. Nobody else understood it. So it gave them a sense of strength and individuality.
It did.
And the white people, their slave owners, didn't understand it. And so they probably loved it even more. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And like I said, the slave owners definitely feared because they weren't sure what it was and why it was making them so powerful and giving them the inspiration and the fortitude to rebel. And
well, back then, anything that wasn't Christian was black magic, so I mean, anything that they didn't understand or believe in was black magic. So I'm sure it really did scare them. It really must have made the slaves feel like, if we're going to get them, we're going to get them like this.
Right.
You know?
One night in 1791, Boukman performed a ritual sacrifice of a black pig. His followers drank the blood of the pig and swore allegiance, vowing to shed the blood of the oppressors until the slaves were free. Haiti was isolated. Terrified slave owners on neighboring islands feared the idea of freedom would be contagious. The voodoo drum was considered so dangerous that they banned them throughout the Caribbean. Haiti would win their independence in 1804.
Wow, that took them quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, they got there.
They got there. An experimental filmmaker and actress, Maya Deren from New York, came to Haiti in 1947 to film voodoo ceremonies. She would chronicle extraordinary images of spirit possessions with her camera, some of the earliest ever recorded on film. Possessions have mystified scholars and scientists for years. Once Maya saw this, she felt like she was on the threshold of something unknown. Before long, Maya would experience a spirit possession herself. Quote, "It was a white darkness. Its whiteness was glory and its darkness was terror." Maya Deren, end quote. This experience changed Maya's life forever. She completely abandoned filmmaking to become a voodoo practitioner herself. I watched some of the filmed possessions, and I get how it can be mysterious and perplexing. The explanation of possession is that a spirit will take over the body and voice of a priest or priestess, that the spirits are said to ride the person they possess, and the person becomes a horse, so to speak. Spirit possession is a transcendent experience in voodoo and all its sister African-based religions throughout the world, such as Candomblé in Brazil and Santeria in Cuba. Candomblé and Santeria may differ from voodoo, but the spiritual revelation of possession is just as profound.
You know, that really is profound. And in theirs, they describe it as riding someone like you're riding a horse. So it's not like they infiltrate your body. It's almost like there's a safe boundary there. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It seems, I don't know why, it seems a bit more acceptable because it's almost like it's not in you, it's attached to you, and maybe at some point you could detach it.
I would say yes to that, but I actually watched one with a lady who was possessed for 9 hours. Mm-hmm. And when she was under the possession, she had no idea. When she came out of it, she was just yawning and yawning and yawning, like she was taking a nap. So I'd say yes and no on them knowing.
No, I'm not saying they're knowing.
They're being able to detach themselves.
I'm saying that it seems more acceptable that something is almost detachable if it's going to possess you, rather than, you know, when we think of something entering into our body, that just seems so invasive and like, how are you going to get that out? Right. If you visualize it. But when you visualize something attached to your back, you can still shed it off.
Right. You know I see what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
I know. Something enters your body like fat. You just can't shake it.
That is definitely black magic, and I'm covered in it. Somebody put a spell on me.
When you said entering your body and you can't shake it, all I could think of was my thighs, my thighs.
I don't know where that came from. Okay.
Karen McCarthy Brown, professor of anthropology of religion, talked about possessions as, quote, "In their understanding, the spirit takes over the voice and the body of the person, and then when talking to that person, you are talking to the spirits," end quote. Spirit possession is a climactic moment in a voodoo ritual. The very perilous ego exchange that happens requires some training. Typically, ordinary people who have not been through initiation are not possessed in ceremonies.
So am I hearing you say that this is something people sign up for ahead of time?
Yes, they're called initiates and they have to go through training.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't see that coming.
Quote, "Based on the idea that you actually receive the spirits into your body directly, that's what I think makes it so impressive. And that's, of course, why Haitians say that you white people go to church and speak about God, but we dance in the temple and become God," end quote. Wade Davis. I thought that was an interesting statement and shows the diversity of religions.
Right.
In the early 19th century, migrants escaping the Haitian Revolution arrived in Louisiana. They brought with them Haitian voodoo. Haitian voodoo was part of the formation of Louisiana voodoo or New Orleans voodoo. Voodoo was practiced secretly and spread across Mississippi. Although it was never banned, it was highly restricted and regulated. You can't talk about voodoo without talking about Marie Laveau. Marie Laveau was born a free woman of color in 1801. She married a man named Jacques Paris, who died in 1820. They had 2 daughters. After Paris's death, she entered into a domestic partnership with Christophe Dominique Duminy du Clopin. It was reported that she had 15 children with Christophe, but some believe they may have been grandchildren. According to birth and baptismal records, there were 7 children. I can't imagine having 17 children. Not that it's not possible, but I'm believing the 7 children and the rest were grandchildren theory. Man, 17 kids, you could have had your own reality show.
I think there is one, just a couple more.
Yes.
Wow.
Marie Laveau was a healer, herbalist, entrepreneur, and worked as a hairdresser to many of the wealthy women in New Orleans. She learned information about her clients, their families, and all goings-on through either her clients confiding their intimate secrets, desires, information about the husbands and lovers, their estates and family affairs, or overhearing their gossip. She would also obtain information from their servants by paying them or helping them with their ailments. During her voodoo consultations, she used this information with the wealthy Orleanian women to build up her image as a clairvoyant and used this intel to give them practical advice. As an entrepreneur, she also made money by selling them gree-gree and amulets as charms to help their wishes come true. A gree-gree, amulet, or talisman is generally a small piece of fabric tied up with twine, filled with herbs or something poison, depending on how it was going to be used. One gree-gree contained gunpowder and dog dung. There are so many jokes that could be inserted in here, but I honestly had pictured explosive diarrhea that makes them howl.
That explains a lot.
Okay. Moving on. There is some controversy as to whether or not Marie Laveau was a selfless servant to the people or a formidable, even ruthless woman. She was known to work with the poor, visited prisoners in jail, and was very empathetic to the needs of the less fortunate. There was a story that in 1852 she regularly visited 2 men in jail that had been convicted of murder and were about to be executed by hanging. On the day of their execution, it was said the skies darkened as if by magic, and when the prisoners were hung, they slipped out of their nooses, which gave the prisoners a reprieve. This qualifies as something we can't wrap our skulls around, but what we do know is that because of this strange incident, the state legislature ended public executions in Louisiana.
Huh. I guess they didn't want to look stupid?
Not if Marie Laveau was around, apparently.
Right.
Scholars believe that when Marie Laveau became too old to practice voodoo herself, her daughter took over. She assumed her name and identity to continue the dynasty. Donald Consento quipped, quote, "Together mother and daughter put a stamp on New Orleans, which has ever since then been considered the voodoo center of North America as opposed to the Caribbean." So it's really these 2 women, mother and daughter, both named Marie Laveau, that we can attribute to the importance of voodoo, not just Louisiana, in all of the southern U.S., end quote. No matter the debate of her character, one is certain. Marie Laveau died in 1881 and is buried at St. Louis No. 1 Cemetery in New Orleans. The cemeteries are called Cities of the Dead because of the rows and rows of above-ground tombs. They resemble city streets. If you go to visit her tomb, there are offerings and X marks on her tomb. To practitioners, their convictions to voodoo is a testament that they believe her spirit can somehow bring them good luck even from beyond the grave. There is a powerful and popular ritual that is done at the grave. This is to make an X on Marie Laveau's tomb with a red brick, knock 3 times, and make your wish or pray.
I wonder how many people do that.
I saw a picture of her tomb.
Is it just covered in X's?
There's a lot. It's not completely covered, but there are quite a few on there.
That's pretty brave to knock on somebody's tomb.
Like she's going to knock back.
Yeah.
Who's there? Come back. I'm doing my hair. Due to voodoo's various ceremonies, it has been plagued as dark magic, but like with any other religion, it is the process of voodoo rituals. Other aspects of the voodoo religion are the altars and offerings to the deities. These altars are set up in practitioners' homes and believed to assist communication with their ancestors. Food and drink is left as an offering for the deities, and each deity has their own preference of food and drink.
Who keeps track of that?
And I don't know how they know.
This one likes Coke. This one likes 7-Up. We got a bougie cranberry juice girl right here.
Vodka and cranberry over there.
Right.
Deities' birthdays are also celebrated with a specific color of frosting for each one. Other than sharing the birthday cake, which they do on the birthdays of the deities, I personally wouldn't touch any of the food. You can keep your rum and PB&J. I'm out. I don't want any of that.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing.
I mean, how does that work? Who cleans it up? Aren't there bugs involved?
Well, I'm sure they leave it for so long. One of the things that I did read is they talked about, there's one specific, and I can't remember his name, deity that comes, and they always give him like the best and the most because he stays the longest, they said.
Where does he go to when he comes? How do they know he's there?
If they're possessed or what?
Interesting.
Right.
So it sounds like they're seasonal, like some come at this time and some come. I don't know. That's what it sounds like, but I don't know that.
And I'm sure there's a way they can tell.
Right. Interesting. Super interesting.
I would say the ultimate expression of voodoo's sinister reputation is in the form of a doll. The reality of the voodoo doll myth comes from carved wood figures from Africa called boccio. Susan Blair, professor of fine arts, elaborated, quote, "In the works of that sort known as boccio, which literally means empowered figure or empowered cadaver, took human form and then were wrapped in various cords of powerful vegetable materials. Pegs would be inserted into parts of them, for example, into the mouth, which intended in part to silence those who might speak against us." End quote.
Wow.
Quote, "The so-called voodoo doll probably comes from a type of powerful figure prevalent among Congo people, and it has medicine bundled in the interior of the figure. And when you want to make an oath or make a strong request, you take a piece of metal, a nail, and drive it into this power center," stated Karen Brown.
So they put a peg in its mouth to keep it silent, speaking against you.
So if somebody was going to speak against you, that I guess you think of that person and put a peg in their mouth so they don't talk
But
smack.
then when you want to make an oath, you drive a nail through its belly? That does not seem like it's correctly.
I didn't make them up.
Like, that nail seems to be just a bit more ominous than they're playing it up to be.
Slave owners feared what powers the boccio had contained, so carving figures were forbidden. If you owned a boccio, that meant certain death. This prompted the rag dolls, as they could be more easily concealed. Some experts believe that the boccio or voodoo dolls possibly served as an early form of psychotherapy for the members of the community. In voodoo rituals and ceremonies, the use of animals is of extreme importance. Animal sacrifices are not only central to voodoo, but central to Haitian life. One of the professors described how Westerners raise moral objections to killing chickens for rituals, but that they die more humanely in voodoo rituals than how they are killed to be used for food. That we've constructed a society that is much more acceptable because others do it for us. I did watch a ritual where they sacrificed a chicken, and it wasn't pleasurable to watch, but it also wasn't aggressively as bad as you would imagine, I guess.
How did they do it?
They held the chicken and tilted its head and basically sliced its neck and then let the blood drip on whatever they were using for the ceremony.
I'm sorry, but that's like everything you see in every kind of black magic, Satanism, you know what I mean? And that's why there's confusion, because they do stuff like that, which we, probably because of Hollywood, equate to that.
Right. And you're exactly right. But I know, isn't it in like the Midwest, they'll take a chicken and by the neck and swing it around?
Swing it around. That's how they, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's very aggressive.
That's very, and I don't know which one, as far as the chicken is concerned, would be more painful. I don't know. But I don't know. I eat chicken, so I really can't make a big stink about it. Yeah, I'd be a hypocrite.
The snake is also a huge part of voodoo, but for a different reason. Snakes represent evil in other religions, but in voodoo, they are revered, considered a source of positive spiritual power and a link to their ancestors. In startling contrast to the Bible, the snake in voodoo embodies powerful good and harmonious blending of the female and male energies.
I find that super interesting that they took kind of what the Bible portrayed the snake as and made it the exact opposite. It almost sounds like what we were talking about before, what Satanism does. They take what's meant, spiritually, biblically from the Bible, Christianity, and they invert it. It almost sounds like that's what they did. Maybe not intentionally, but it does seem kind of like, that's interesting that we're blending male and female energies, whereas before, the snake in the Bible, the serpent, rips everything apart and changes everything. So it's interesting.
It's their religion, and
they can do with it what they want. It's just, they don't want to be seen that way, but at the same time, they take something so specific from the Bible and literally twist it the other way.
Quote, the vision of pythons in this religion is quite different from the snake in Judeo-Christian religion. In Judeo-Christian religion, we have the evil little snake in the Garden of Eden slithering horizontally on the ground. These snakes are saints and stand. They are shown standing, bridging heaven and earth under God, end quote, explains Robert Ferris Thompson, professor of African and African American art. Now, I wanted to do this episode because I had seen some crimes where voodoo was used as the reason. However, I didn't really want to talk about the crimes until I did some background and understood a little bit more about voodoo. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I was one of the outsiders that believed voodoo made them do it. But now after reading and finding out more about voodoo, I think my feelings have changed a little bit.
Okay. A little bit more open-minded to the intent behind the religion.
Yes. Elizabeth McAllister, a professor of Wesleyan University, who is an expert in Afro-Caribbean religions and Haitian voodoo, said about a normal protective ritual, quote, it might involve performing an herbal bath, healing prayers, and lighting a candle while doing prayers. It might involve the use of incense to cleanse the space or to calm the person, end quote. Experts say that Haitian voodoo is not violent, that suspects and victims have attributed voodoo being used in multiple crimes. On January 5, 2018, in Brockton, 8-year-old Edson Marlon Brito and his 5-year-old brother, Layson Brito, were stabbed to death by their mother, Latricia Latrice Sanders, 43. Edson was stabbed approximately 50 times. Sanders told police, quote, it was because of the voodoo stuff, end quote. According to Sanders, she moved on to Layson because she failed in the ritual with Marlon. Family members said that Sanders was into voodoo and obsessed with Illuminati rituals and sacrifices. I would love to know what ritual she was attempting to perform that required her to stab one son, and if it failed, to stab the other.
It sounds to me like this lady was just not all there. And for whatever reason, maybe she was paranoid schizophrenic or something. She went after her kids. But everything she's saying doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
And who says it's because of the voodoo? I mean, if you do something and you have a reason why you did it, you don't say it like that. It's because of the voodoo stuff.
It's because of the voodoo stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, come on.
In Queens, New York, on January 29th, 2014, Carlos Alberto Amarillo, 48, took a hammer to his girlfriend Estela Castaneda, 56, and her daughter Lena Castaneda, 25, viciously bludgeoning them to death. His reason? He claimed they were witches who cast voodoo spells on him that made him sick. Amarillo called 911 admitting, quote, 2 women are dead. They were assassinated. Hurry, they are dead. I killed them because they are witches, end quote. When police arrived, they found Lena Castaneda's 7-year-old daughter, thankfully unharmed, in her mother's room, and Amarillo holding a Bible. Amarillo had also stated that he killed them with a hammer and wanted police to shoot him. The whole thing bothers me, but suicide by cop, honestly, you've already killed people, you've already ruined lives, and now you want to ruin somebody else's life. Granted, they are trained for that, but you want to ruin someone else's life on top of that? Because they're going to have to live with killing you? That bothers me.
It sounds like, again, this guy was mentally unstable.
15-year-old Christy Bamu was living his life with his family in suburban London. On Christmas Day, 2010, his sister, Magali Bamu, 29, and her football coach partner, Eric Bakubi, 28, murdered Christy because they believed he was a witch. The couple had good jobs, were well-dressed, and appeared to be upright and decent, but also practiced African black magic or voodoo. They tortured Christy for 3 days, attacking him with knives, sticks, metal bars, a hammer, pliers, and a chisel to rid him of his demons.
Jeez.
After 3 days, they put him in a bath, poured cold water on him to wash away the blood, then filled the tub, but because he was so badly injured, he slid under the water and drowned. In this article, I saw a picture of broken floor tiles that were covered in blood, and the statement under the picture was, quote, "This image shows floor tiles which were used in the murder of Christy Bamu. The case was a shocking reminder of how witchcraft and its roots in Africa, South Asia, and the Caribbean is now practiced in the heart of our multicultural cities and towns," end quote. I find that strange. Again, they're lumping things together.
Well, not only that, but who is saying that? The news?
That's the article I read.
So here this poor kid is being accused of being a witch. He's only 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The sister and her boyfriend might have been nutty as hell. And this kid wasn't even a witch. So it's like they killed him for being a witch, maybe. And now the news is confirming that he was a witch and that the practice is inundating the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
What is wrong with these news people?
There was a whole lot of wrong with
Why
this whole
aren't they
story.
focusing on the sister and her boyfriend killing this kid instead of focusing on the fact that perhaps witchcraft is invading the world? That's crazy.
So they practice black magic or supposedly voodoo, but they're going after him because he's a witch. It's so contradictory, the whole thing.
But maybe he wasn't a witch. Maybe they're the evil ones.
They are the evil. That was my point. I didn't make it very eloquently, but that was my point.
Okay. This is crap. I'm kind of going, am I reading this right?
And this is another reason why I wanted to get the background on voodoo and find out exactly what.
But this doesn't sound like it's voodoo. This is black magic.
But they're using voodoo as an excuse for what they're doing.
They're using their interpretation of voodoo, which who knows where they got that from, you know?
And I'm going back, honestly, to the movies.
If I wanted to do something voodoo-ish, that would be my only reference. So who knows? They're wacky anyway, so.
Right. Well, if you're going to do something voodoo-ish, you already know. You just heard this podcast.
I'm going to take a hard pass on that. No disrespect, but I'm going to take a hard pass.
Okay. In Middleton, Massachusetts, in 2013, police officers went to the home of Myrna Anton, 41, to serve a warrant for 2 arson suspects. Antoine, who was intoxicated, began waving a red scarf chanting, quote, "I do voodoo."
Another professional at her best.
Right.
I do voodoo.
Then picked up an ornamental metal skull, hurling it at the officers. She then began swinging a machete, yelling again, "I do voodoo. I'm from Haiti." Antoine, I'm
That's
sorry.
the brown bag version of voodoo.
It's not funny, but
It is funny because it's ridiculous.
Antoine was arrested for assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. Then the red scarf, is she waving it, trying to stop them or have them charged? What was she doing?
I think she was just trying to think of the scariest thing she could think of. Me do voodoo.
With her machete and her red scarf.
Woo! That's ridiculous.
January 26, 2018, officers were called to perform a health and welfare check on two siblings, a 5-year-old girl and her brother, 8 years old. They were staying with Peggy Labossiere, 51, and Rachel Hilaire, 40. Their mother left them with Labossiere and Hilaire because she thought her daughter had an evil spirit inside of her and that they could perform a voodoo ritual to help get rid of it. When police arrived, they found the little girl with a large third-degree burn on her face. The 5-year-old girl told police that she had been tied down, that Labossiere kissed her face like a snake, then cut her arm and collar area and proceeded to blow fire in her face.
Oh my gosh.
If that wasn't bad enough, they put water and oils on the girl, including on her eyes. Police said the chemicals burned her face so badly that she probably would not heal. Labossiere and Hilaire also threatened the 8-year-old boy by telling him they would cut off his head, then rubbed his body, including his genitals, with a plant-like substance. Both the women were arrested for mayhem, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, assault and battery on a child with injury, indecent assault and battery on a child under the age of 14, and threatening to commit a crime by threatening to kill the boy. This is not something that I would imagine voodoo religion condoning.
I don't know enough about it to comment about that, but that can't be part of anybody's religion. I mean, unless it's a dark black religion. And what about their mother? Their mother should be charged as well.
For dropping them off.
Yes.
And actually read she wasn't charged.
And not supervising what was about to happen to her children. I mean, if she fully believed something good was going to happen, why did she leave?
Exactly. In this instance, I really go back to the whole eye for an eye thing. Let somebody blow fire in these women's faces.
I'll do it. I mean, that's horrifying. Pick on somebody your own size.
Exactly.
Blow fire in my face. Let's see what happens. Ugh, how aggravating.
Very. These are just a few of the crimes that have been committed blaming the voodoo religion. Nowhere in everything I researched did I see that killing someone with a hammer, pliers, metal bars, or a chisel, or torturing children because they had evil spirits in them is part of the voodoo religion. I have to wonder, is it ignorance, fear of the unknown, or Hollywood that has influenced outsiders?
Good question. I have no answers.
I don't either.
Yeah. It's a good episode, though. Lots and lots of information. Makes you think.
It does. And I do have a new appreciation for voodoo.
It sounds like voodoo itself it's not the thing that most of us think it is, but somehow, and for whatever reason, it's been turned into this dark thing that we don't understand. So people have just kind of made it darker and darker. And it sounds like maybe they even use that in a positive way for themselves to scare the slave owners back in the day. So maybe they allowed it to be used that way. But now that it's a new world, it still has that reputation of being dark and scary.
It still has that stigma.
That stigma, exactly. And it's not even that, but it's stuck with it because it worked for them back in the 1800s, but it's not working for the religion now.
Right.
So who knows? That's just kind of an overview after what I heard you say. We want to thank you all for listening. Have fun, take care, and let your imaginations run wild. We just want to thank you all for sharing your time with us. And if you'd like to send in your creepy little grim bits, we would love to hear your personal stories, interests, and suggestions. Please email them to grimwitwithdimwits@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at grimwitwithdimwits, Twitter at grimwitwithdimwits, and Facebook, Grimwit with Dimwits. Join us every Monday for new episodes and feel free to share us with your grim-loving friends.
We would really appreciate if you would take a minute to rate and review. 5-star ratings go a long way and would really help us out. Until then, we would love it if you'd come back next week to delve with us into the strange and unusual things we just can't wrap our skulls around.